This is Kevin Mann. Welcome to Module 2, Relate, Open the Way for Communication. This is an image of a gate guardian in front of a temple in Singapore. The purpose of the gate guardian is to prevent evil from getting into the temple. And in a sense, we have a filter like that in front of our own minds. We're not going to listen to people who don't respect us or whose motives we don't trust or who we think don't have the right expertise. And I'm going to call those listening gates. The first of these listening gates is respect. We don't listen to people who don't respect us. And second, our motive has to be acceptable. If we feel like somebody's motive is to take advantage of us, we're not going to listen to them. And they need to have some expertise. If they don't have expertise, why should we listen? So these are the three gates that we need to get past. A few comments about respect. Always treat people as ends in themselves, never as means to an end. Immanuel Kant. I speak to everyone in the same way, whether he is a garbage man or the president of the university. Albert Einstein. And if Einstein could treat everyone with the same respect, I think we all can. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Martin Luther King, Jr. I'd add this one comment from my own experience in business. Whenever you find somebody who is critical of a client or a business partner or another employee and is not respectful of them, it usually really indicates that they don't understand the other person's point of view. And if they're a seller, they won't be that successful as a seller. If they're a consultant, they won't be so successful as a consultant. So that respect and finding authentic respect for your audience is really a way of understanding and knowing your audience better. And they're going to be able to tell whether you really respect them or are just pretending. Motive is also important. So William Blake said, "A truth that's told with bad intent beats all the lies you can invent." Thomas Mann, people's behavior makes sense if you think about it in terms of their goals, needs, and motives. In other words, motive is pretty important in determining how we act. And Confucius said, "Consider his motives, observe his pleasures." People do care about your motive. They want to know why you're giving your presentation, what's in it for you, because that, they feel, and I think this is often true, will influence what information you choose to present and what information you de-emphasize or don't present. So communicating your motive can be an important part of the people being willing to listen at all. Expertise is a foundation for you to have something worth saying. Greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge, by Stephen Hawking. So that he's making a point about really having valid, supportable expertise. Knowledge is a treasure, but practice is the key to it, Lao Tzu. So the more your expertise is based in real activity, the more convincing it is. And Mark Twain put a point on that: a man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way. Basically, you have to prove to your audience that you have some foundation. Otherwise, there's no real reason for them to listen. So let's look at Sam Palmisano demonstrating these 3 points about respect, motive, and expertise. So Sam Palmisano gave this speech in 2009, the Medical Innovation Summit at the Cleveland Clinic. Sam Palmisano, the CEO of IBM, would not necessarily be a natural speaker to a group of healthcare professionals because they wouldn't associate IBM necessarily with the healthcare industry. So watch how he establishes respect and communicates motive and expertise in the next little bit. What I have on the page will be his as-reported comments that were published by IBM after the speech, and the audio is his actual comments as he gave them. I included it that way because I think it's quite fun to see how Sam Palmisano himself embellished, ad-libbed, and was very much himself throughout all these presentations that he gave when he was a senior IBM leader.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Harris, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today in this wonderful room. I was so impressed, and I asked Chris a question. I said, "Is this the hotel?" He said, "Well, we sort of own it." So I said, "Now I understand, but it's magnificent." But again, thank you. I'm actually humbled to be here today and look out in this room filled with extraordinary depth and breadth of expertise. As you can see from my background with sports and entertainment, either the alumni or on stage, it's not quite the same thing. But I'm somewhat, intimidated to be talking to you all who know so much about your subject, and I'm certainly not an expert in the field of healthcare in any dimension.
So I thought that was a great way to start because, of course, he's interested the audience into why is he speaking, and he's also expressed this humility and respect for them.
But I am fortunate in a way that I work in a company where there is a lot of expertise, and we're deeply involved in the healthcare systems around the world in multiple different dimensions.
So you see, just right there, he turns the discussion to say, well, IBM has this expertise. So let's look at the expertise he claimed. Said we sell products and services. We have 4,000 people, $4 billion in revenue into the healthcare industry. We're a large employer with this large number of people insured in the USA, and we're working with governments around the world towards a 21st century healthcare system. This is all the reasons, both motive and expertise, for his remarks, right? For all these reasons, we are actively interested in the direction and evolution of healthcare here in America and as a global industry. So that helps to establish his reason for being there. Now the next piece, we're going to finish where he wants to turn and talk about the healthcare system and IBM's expertise in systems.
So I think then the question becomes, how does all of that apply to the healthcare system? And well, when we talk about the healthcare system, I think you'll agree with me that you need to put the word system in quotes, because I think you know that all of you involved in it, it's hard to call it a system. I mean, is it really one? Or is it just a collection of related industries, some large, some small, operating in close proximity of one another? Don't take my word for it. I mean, last week we had this forum I mentioned already called Smarter Cities, and Dr. Dennis Cortez, as you know from Mayo, Denny was kind enough to join us, and he gave a wonderful talk. And I think he surprised many of the people in the audience. There were about 600 people, the governors, mayors, White House officials. I mean, you can shake a stick at all the people that were there. Anyway, and he stood up and made this statement that the room was sort of shocked when he said it. He said, the American healthcare system isn't broken. Silence of the room. He said, why? Because that would imply that you could actually have a system to fix. And he said, there isn't. We don't have such a system today. And then he was elegant explaining about what a system is versus what the healthcare environment happens to be. And I think you'll agree. That's part of its challenge we have today.
Now, just notice that where he wanted to make what could be seen as a criticism of the healthcare industry, he doesn't make it himself. He uses Dr. Dennis Cortese, head of the Mayo Clinic, who they would all respect. So that was a very smart choice here, continuing this, maintaining his respectful approach to the audience. But now he wants to prove IBM's expertise.
And at IBM, this is something we know quite a bit about. We know about systems. Over nearly half a century of work in businesses and governments around the world, we have designed and built, and to some extent we even run, social security systems, modern electronic banking systems, airline reservation systems, retail systems, transportation, food systems, telecommunication systems. I can go on and on and on. Here, India, China, Brazil, third world countries, everywhere in the world, we kind of operate and run these kinds of systems.
All right, so I think he does a really nice job now of setting up why IBM has the respect for the industry, the motive for improving the industry, and the expertise for the remarks he's going to make next. So that was the front end of his talk. One danger, the introduction should not be any longer than you need it to be. So in this case, Sam Palmisano needed a longer introduction. If you don't have an issue with respect, motive, or expertise that needs to be covered off, you can move through that very, very quickly. Don't spend more time than you need because it's boring. Long introductions are boring when they're not needed. Okay, so what should an introduction include? At a minimum, the topic you're going to cover, who you are, and with some expression of respect, typically, is necessary and valuable. What you know about the topic or the expertise you're bringing, and why you're here today. The motive, what is the win-win that you're hoping for in the presentation. Some housekeeping topics that ideally somebody else has covered, but if they haven't covered it, if you're a solo speaker, these are some housekeeping topics that you may need to cover with the audience before you start. So the listening gates: respect, motive, expertise. You need to pass those. And research also shows us that if you're likable, that can also help. So if you want to be friendly and likable, that certainly can help people listen to you better. We will listen to a very short video clip of Jane Goodall giving her introduction at the beginning of a talk. She often does this particular introduction. I don't want to spoil it in advance because it's just so great. It's a great example of what we say, show, don't tell. So she shows her expertise, and it's a unique expertise. So I won't spoil it by further comments, but that'll be our next video. And for those of you who are doing the exercises as we go along, here is an exercise for you to work on with your colleagues. Thank you very much.